All right, what's going on, guys? We are out here working on Operation SV2 again. I've been working on this gauge cluster here, finally getting one put on here. Let's walk you through what I got. All right, so we've got a TrailTech Vapor. I did a custom mount for this because I've got this custom top triple. We'll take a look at that in just a second, but I finally got it wired up. I've got the positive and negative wired into the original gauge cluster plug, so that way it's keyed to the turns on and off with the key. So that way this one supposedly their wiring diagram, they want you to wire it directly hard to the battery with a fuse, so that way it's on all the time and then it idles off after 20 minutes of inactivity. I would rather just have it keyed. I have the ability to make it keyed, so I did. Let's take a look and see how we've got it wired up besides just the power. All right, so from the unit, it comes down here and it's got about 6 inches of line or a little bit less, and then some plugs, and then it comes with the rest of the wires that plug into those. Each of those plugs only plugs into one of those, so it's real easy to get put together, real hard to mess up. But I've got, like I said, the power coming off of the original gauge plug. And then I've got the tachometer wire. It runs down here. Of course, they all run down in the frame. And then I've got the tachometer wire. It runs down alongside the frame here. And you can kind of see the plug right here. That's the signal wire for that rear coil. What I did was just strip a little bit of that wire back, unplugged that, ran it up through the little spade there, and then just threw the connector back on it. And then here in just a second we'll talk about the settings that I had to use to be able to get that to work, but works fantastic, which was great because one of the biggest complaints I saw about this unit online when I was trying to troubleshoot it was that nobody seems to know how to get it to where the tachometer reliably reads, and I seem to have cracked the code. I've seen literally thousands of forum posts about it, and nobody has solid advice that got me to where I am, so I will provide that in just a moment.
Yesterday.
All right, so after much trial and error, got the correct wire here, which maybe I didn't even need, because I think a setting was incorrectly explained in the manual for this gauge, but I got to figure it out. So, turn this bad boy on. We'll get you up close so you can see what we're doing. We'll go into settings mode by pushing all 3 buttons. We'll go from units, we'll click our way around over here. So the first PPR, this is the issue that I had the other day setting up the speedometer. The first PPR on the setting menu is for the speedometer pickup. I originally had that set to 2 because I was trying to get it to read the tachometer appropriately, and then I realized that based on my phone's GPS, it was reading exactly half of the speed that I needed. And then I realized I only had 1 magnet on the wheel, so maybe that's what that's for. So I changed it to 1, and now it reads perfect. It's great. Let's go back in here. Idles out. Units, 24 time, PPR, cool. So that one's that one. Then you have to tell it when you want it to change from, my understanding based on the way that the manual explains it, is that this pulse tells it when to read differently for the tachometer. So I just changed that to 200 because that's way below what it should be reading anyway. And then this PPR I changed to 1/2. And that made the tachometer read from half speed to regular speed. So let's finish out here. I've got my shift lights. The 8000 will give me a yellow light over here. 10.5 is just below the 11,000 red line for this. That'll make this one flash red. And then we're back to normal. So let me get you guys set up on a tripod here so I can have my hands, and we'll show you that it's working. So I'm pretty stoked. Now for the speedometer, it runs down through that same hole in the frame, but it runs across here and out along, and it runs down, yada, 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 all the way back down here to the rear caliper mount. So you've got the pickup right here. Right now I've just got it Gorilla Tape, double stick taped on there. just to make sure it's going to work really well, and it actually is working fantastically. And I actually didn't plan this, but the bolt turns out perfect. It came with a bolt that replaces the disc bolts, and it works really great. It's got a magnet on it, swings right past it. It's got enough clearance that I'm not hitting anything on the caliper mount, but it's close enough that it does set that off for the speedometer, and it works great. I'm really happy with how that came out. I don't have like an extra wire running down on my fork causing issues. Just kind of looking crappy. It's kind of a pretty clean connection here, and I just zip tied it up along the rear brake hose, and then it just runs up into the frame. Now the kit that I picked up actually was for a different motorcycle. I actually was able to get it for free, which was the reason that I went this route. It was one of the options I was looking at anyway, but that made that a real easy decision to make. It came with all the wiring and the temperature pickup for that bike, and that means that I had to actually buy this. So I had to buy a couple of things. I had to buy the tachometer wire, because the one for the SV650 has a resistor in it that some other bikes don't. When I was having difficulty getting the tachometer working, I just went ahead and sprung for that. It was a few bucks, super quick and easy. And then this I had to pick up as well. This is the temperature sensor. It is the style that you cut a hole in your radiator hose and splice this in the middle. But supposedly the temperature sensor that is in this will screw directly into the temperature sensor that's in the thermostat housing. So we're going to walk through that here in a minute and see if that works. If it doesn't, then I'll splice this in where it needs to go so that I can have a engine temp readout on my dash. And this is what came in that box. It has a couple of hose clamps with it as well. Temperature sensor in there. And hopefully enough wiring to reach all the way up here. I believe it will. If I can't get it to fit in that thermostat housing, you can kind of see that green plug right there directly ahead. That is clipped on right there onto the pickup, which, looking at this, it looks like this probably is going to be a different thread than that, so this may not work out. But I got to drain the radiator anyway, so we'll give it a whirl. But I will splice this up behind this framer light here so it's out of the way. And then I know I have enough wiring to get up here. But yeah, we'll do that so that way I can get a motor temperature pickup. Alright, so working on this coolant temp sensor, and to get this off, it was just easier to take the air box off so I could reach down in there and kind of pry this off of the T-stat housing. See how easy that is to get back on. But at any rate, here is the semi-finished product. I just had to cut a little chunk out there, put that in there. I wanted to get that where it was going to be kind of hidden behind the frame rail. If it was black, I wouldn't have cared nearly as much and probably would have just tucked it up here. But with it being silver, it's a little obvious, so we'll hide it behind the frame rail there. We'll get this snaked back in there and put back on. Get it filled back up, and hopefully have us a temp sensor on the gauge. Alright, so after much wailing and gnashing of teeth, trying to get this guy in here, we've got him mounted on here. I don't like that little flap of that clamp, but I don't really have a better way to get to it without just disassembling the whole thing and pulling it out piece by piece, clamping that on there, and then squeezing it back in here. So we're going to roll with that. But comes up over here. Got my temp sensor in here, conveniently hidden by the frame rails. You can barely see it if you're like looking for it. The wire for it runs up along this frame rail, under that loop, and up through here, plugs in. Got some extra zip tied up over here, so that way it's out of the way. Put this on here. We should be ready to go. Let's top it off, see what kind of reading we get. Alright, so check this out. This is the water temp. It says 0. The sensor is unplugged. This is the one that I just installed, the one that I purchased for the SV kit. This is the temp sensor that came with the free kit that I had. That came with the gauge. So, check this out. Let's give it a second to update. It says 0. Here's the plug. Plug this in, to 0, unplugged. Plug it in, and now it goes to lines. So there's something wrong with this temp sending unit that I got. So when I unplug this again, it goes back to 0. I already plugged this one in, and it does actually read ambient air temp and warms up when I hold it in my hand. So what I'm gonna do is cuss at this thing to take it out again, and just unscrew that, screw this in, run the whole thing again.
One eternity later.
So after a couple of weeks of this thing being apart, we finally got it back together, and after trials and tribulations, the coolant temp sensor still does not work. The gauge that I got appears to be a knockoff because the TrailTech temp sensor does not interface with it and send a signal it can read. I think I posted this a minute ago. You get a 0 for the temp when there's nothing plugged into it, and when I plug the TrailTech sensor into it, it goes to dashes. I wrote it last night, and it turns out once it gets real warm, it'll actually read a temp, but it says about 8 degrees Fahrenheit, which obviously is not correct. It does read what appears to be an accurate temperature when I hook up the temp sensor that came with the kit, and I had hoped that the temp sensor in here would just unscrew from this little adapter, and I could screw the other one in, but it turns out it's a different thread, so it's not can't just screw it in there. So we're gonna have to deal with that later. But for now, I got the, you can almost see it down in here, right there. Put my pinky on it. I've got that hose in there, that hose adapter with the temp sensor on it. I got it ran up and plugged into it just so that way my hose is all complete and I can get the bike running. It's kind of a pain in the ass to get to, but we got it, and that's going to be the end of the install for this guy. I did get a battery in it, and now it will keep time. Like I said, to see the dashes, that's the current air temp, but works great. Tachometer works great, speedometer works great. I'm gonna see if I can figure out how to get that little 1/10 of a mile per hour off of there. I don't particularly care for that, but not terribly worried about it. But yeah, no, it lights up, it does great. I'm happy with it generally. So we'll keep running it, and I'll give you guys an update if I do anything else with it or if I have any other issues. All right, I think it's gonna be it for this video. Hopefully this is helpful to somebody, but mostly just kind of documenting my my bullshits. But comment down in the doobly-doo below if you have anything to add, subtract, or crucify me for. I'm sure plenty of you will have plenty, and we'll talk to you guys again soon. Better not stay out too late with this lightning. Doesn't smell like rain yet, but these fucking things, man. I'm gonna get run over by one of these things.